present this evening's speaker, Paul Dumais, who shares a few things in common with me, actually, and we've been crossing paths regularly since the last few years. He was born in Montreal. I was born in Montreal, and I don't know many people who were born in Montreal. He went to Iran and spoke to me about his trip when I was thinking about going. I went a little bit later. And he's learning Persian, and I'm learning Persian, so every once in a while we compare our progress. And so yes, this is the description, a short biography of him. Far from being an authority in social sciences, he nonetheless knows and loves his native Quebec. He's also an admirer of the Persian civilization, has been studying Persian since 2006, has traveled to Iran in the summer of 2008, and he has earned his Ph.D. in mathematics from the Université de Montréal in 2002, and now teaches mathematics in CEGEP. So I'm certain it's going to be a fascinating evening.
Thank you very much. So, good evening, everyone. So we are not going to talk about mathematics tonight. This is about the culture of Quebec. Pasha invited me for that. And he asked me to, if I wish, to prepare something about everyday culture, the stuff that someone needs to know when he arrives here. And so I thought about it, and I did some preparation, and I noted my ideas. So we're going to talk about the culture of Quebec. Sometimes it's not going to be everyday culture. It's going to be culture in general, and you're not going to leave this place tonight with a profound understanding of the Quebecois psyche. It's just an overview. Okay, so I wish you will enjoy it. First thing about we're going to talk about all of those characters tonight. This one, I don't know this one. Easy. Anyway, I would like to mention a few general things about the culture of Quebec, and also, I think there is only Jean-Christophe here is Québécois. Saba? No. So, if you think that I'm missing something at the end, you can jump in, Jean-Christophe, and correct me or throw me out of the window if I say something wrong. Yes, okay. So when we speak about the culture of Quebec, it's there is something to say about it, as opposed to, for example, the culture of Ontario. You never hear something like Ontarian culture. It's Canadian culture. Okay? So this is very different here, of course, because of the French language. Also because of the legal system is slightly different here. For example, we have a mixture of the common law, British common law, and the Roman system of law here in Quebec, as opposed to the other provinces. For example, our parliament at Quebec, you know that we have 3 levels of government. We have the city, the province, and Canada. So our parliament at Quebec is named Assemblée Nationale, as opposed to the other provinces, which is called, they are called Assemblée Législative. So Assemblée Nationale is a term which is borrowed from France. And we pay taxes in Quebec, and they don't pay taxes in Ontario, and so on. Okay, so you have the best and the worst. And also, yes, it reminds me, in 2001, there was a new Minister of Culture. Her name was Diane Lemieux, and just after being elected, she was unexperimented with politics, and she said very innocently that, well, yes, I'm the new Minister of Culture in Quebec, and there's this culture québécoise, and there is no culture, culture ontarienne. And she said this very hurtfully. Okay. And but it was misinterpreted in the rest of Canada. So they thought that she just said that there was no culture in Ontario or something like that. But as I explained to you earlier, it doesn't mean we don't call it Ontarian. For example, Margaret Atwood, she's a very famous writer, but nobody says that she's a very famous Ontario writer. She's a famous Canadian writer. As opposed to, for example, Michel Tremblay, he's a Québécois writer. You wouldn't think to say that he's a Canadian writer, or maybe in some context, but the first thing that comes to your mind would be to say that he's a Québécois writer. And I have my notes, so I will have to read. Same thing when we were talking with Pasha yesterday about Leonard Cohen, who is here. He's very young with his cigarette. And he was born in Montreal. I don't know if you knew that fact. And he composed very beautiful songs about Montreal. For example, Suzanne. His most famous song is about a girl, a French-Canadian girl, she was living in Montreal. And he describes the river and so on. And in other songs too. But nobody would think of saying that Leonard Cohen is a chansonnier québécois or something. It's not the same category. He's a great Canadian poet or something like this. So there's possibility of a debate here, but for example, again, you have around the world, in Europe, in China, in United States, everywhere you have in universities Quebec studies or Canadian studies, but no such thing as Alberta studies or stuff like that. Okay, so there's something to be said about that here. Also, when we use the word national, for example, I mentioned Assemblée nationale for the Parliament. When we use that word, we really mean the nation of Quebec, never Canada, except maybe in some expression like Ligue nationale de hockey, National Hockey League, but this doesn't even mean Canada, it means the United States. So, for example, if you say la capitale nationale, it doesn't mean Ottawa, it means Quebec. Or if you say un héros national, it means maybe Maurice Richard, but not English Canadian. So when we use the word national, or national in French, we really mean Quebec. And if you don't mean that, you have to say it differently or precisely. Be more precise. And also you might know that at the Parliament of Ottawa, there is a political party called Bloc Québécois, which is supposed to be there. We will talk a little bit about politics tonight. This party is supposed to be preparing for the independence of Quebec, but it will probably not happen within a few tenths of a year or whatever, maybe never. So some people say, well, what are they doing over there? But these people are still voting for them. So, and a last thing before starting, well, I've already starting to the other stuff. The question of language is always an issue. It's always touchy. Okay. For example, in 2008, it was the 400th anniversary of Quebec City. So there were celebrations all year long, and during the summer they organized that show with Paul McCartney in Quebec City, and everyone was very excited. and so on. But even before Paul McCartney had a chance to say anything, there was already a controversy about whether he